to servicing debt, the greatest indication of the extent of the cash crunch facing President William Ruto's administration. Data from the National Treasury shows the government spent 98.77% of revenue to repay public debt, the highest amount in recent months. According to the Statement of Actual Revenues and Net Exchequer Issues, a document published monthly in the Kenyan Gazette by National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u, the government spent 163.5 billion shillings out of the 165.57 billion shillings collected as taxes to pay public debt. The figures exclude money raised from government services, which form a part of non-tax revenue. This means the Treasury mostly relied on loans to fund all government recurrent and development expenditures, including paying salaries and disbursements to counties, among other needs, as it was left with apparently only 2 billion shillings in revenue, further placing the nation down a dangerous slope of over-reliance on borrowing. More of that story on page 7 of the Standard newspaper. Moving on now to page 8 of the Standard newspaper, Raila succession scramble to grab mantle begins in Azimio and ODM. The race to succeed Azimio leader Raila Odinga in the country's opposition is on, and political titans are lining up with optimism to inherit his mantle. It is a debate that has been ongoing since Raila lost the 2022 presidential elections, but has gotten a new lease of life after he announced his interest in shifting his attention to continental politics. The decision by the ODM leader to offer himself to be the next chairperson of the African Union Commission (AUC) has increased the political undercurrents related to his succession. Observers predict that the scramble is bound to take two fronts and will be fought in the larger Azimio coalition and his ODM party. Other insiders believe that the ODM leader will have a direct hand on whoever succeeds him, but may choose not to side with any of his allies and instead opt to let the strongest rise to the occasion. According to the Standard newspaper, it has established that intense lobbying has begun in earnest in the opposition as members start preparing for the possibility of politics without Raila. In Azimio, for example, among those hoping to fill Raila's big boots are Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua, alongside former governors Wycliffe Oparanya and Hassan Ali Joho. More of that story on page 8 of the Standard newspaper. On page 9 now it says high temperatures due to the effects of El Nino. Kenyans have recently been experiencing excess heat during the day and night, and the weatherman has now attributed this to effects of recent El Nino. Kenya experienced El Nino rains from last year, November, which lasted up to January. Yesterday, the Kenya Meteorological Department said the current high temperatures were expected. Places like Mandera, Marsabit, and Garissa could be experiencing high temperatures of over 35 degrees. Dr. Mutua from the Meteorological Department Director said Nairobi could be experiencing temperatures of up to 29 and 28 degrees and will persist till March. He advised Kenyans to wear light clothes, avoid exposing their bodies to much sun through wearing a cap, carrying an umbrella, and staying hydrated. It said, according to weather forecast from February 20 to 26th, most parts of the country are expected to be sunny and dry. More of that story on page 9 of the Standard newspaper. On page 12 now of the Standard newspaper, doctors threaten to strike over delayed internships. The Doctors Union has issued a strike threat to the Ministry of Health, demanding immediate internship placements for over 1,000 medical graduates. Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentist Union (KMPDU) said they will down tools much faster if the demands are not met. KMPDU SG Davji Bimji Atela said that doctors in the 47 counties will go on a 3-day strike. The union, speaking in Nairobi, faulted the ministry and National Treasury for their continued delay in releasing funds to place 1,215 medical graduates into internship across the country. Of that story on page 12. On page 13 now, Kiptum died of injuries to skull, spine, and ribs, according to autopsy. The late marathon star Kelvin Kiptum died of severe head, spine, and rib injuries. An autopsy conducted by Chief Government Pathologist Johansen Oduor yesterday found that the men's marathon world record holder sustained skull fractures and broken ribs during the accident that happened at Flax Junction along Eldoret-Eldama Ravine Road on February 11th. Oduor said the impact of the accident resulted in right broken ribs. He said Kiptum's spinal cord was seriously injured during the crash. The government pathologist said samples collected from Kiptum's body will be taken for toxicology analysis. Speaking at Eldoret Hospital morgue where the autopsy was done, Oduor said an analysis of the samples would show whether Kiptum, who was the driver of the ill-fated Toyota Premio, was intoxicated. He further reported that the post-mortem found that Kiptum had sustained an injury also to his lungs. More of that story on page 13 of the Standard newspaper. On page 14 now, opinions there, and let us do editor. It says government should take its austerity measures seriously. The government is preaching water and drinking wine. On the other one hand, it would want Kenyans to believe that things are thick, which is true, and therefore they must tighten their belts, stay calm, and they are taxed heavily and hope for the better times ahead. On the other hand, the government, which has on many occasions issued all manners of edicts ordering spending cuts in the executive ministries and departments, is still profligate. The extravagance is currently on display in Naivasha, where cabinet secretaries and Kenya Kwanza lawmakers have been booked into luxurious hotels and are busy spending and barely available resources that the country has. This comes as a large state-owned facilities across the country, such as the Kenya International Convention Center and the Kenya School of Government, where the retreat could have taken place at a bargain, lie idle. This retreat is just one of the many avenues through which taxpayer funds are being spent with abandon, even as the state preaches austerity. A new report by the Control of Budget noted that travel costs from 4 different state agencies went up by 3 billion shillings to 11 billion shillings over the first 6 months of the current financial year. Never mind that the National Assembly and Treasury last year halved the travel budget for ministries, departments, and agencies and limited the officials who can travel by air on domestic routes, and also banned non-essential tea, lunch, and water for civil servants. More of that story, you will find it on page 14 of the Standard newspaper. On page 18 now, that's business news. It says Ruto adds 3 trillion shillings to public debt despite vow to cut borrowing. In the 1.5 years that President William Ruto's government has been in office, It has increased Kenya's public debt by more than 3 trillion shillings. This is according to a brief that formed the basis of some of the discussions at the cabinet retreat in Naivasha earlier this week. The document says the Kenya Kwanza regime has borrowed 3.01 trillion shillings, but also received 334 billion shillings as grants over the period it has been in office. The amount, however, higher than the Central Bank of Kenya's figures. According to CBK, Kenya's public debt stood at 11.14 trillion shillings as of December last year, which would mean an increase of 2.44 trillion shillings from 8.7 trillion shillings in September 2022 when President Ruto was sworn into office. But CBK's data does not factor in loans that the government may have taken in January and February this year, which may have been included in the cabinet brief. The heavy borrowing is despite Ruto coming to power on the promise that his administration will slow down on borrowing. More of that story on page 18 of the Standard newspaper. African World News Now, you'll find it from page 22 of the Standard newspaper, as it says, parenting advised YouTuber given 4 years in prison for child abuse, and head teacher shooting arrested pupil aged 13 may be tried as adult. More of that story on page 22 and 23 of the African World News. That says a 13-year-old schoolboy in South Africa arrested after allegedly shooting and injuring his principal may be tried as an adult. The prosecuting authority is saying the boy, who has not been named, has been charged with attempted murder. His alleged 51-year-old victim is currently recovering in intensive care in hospital. The shooting has shocked many people in South Africa, where there is growing concern over violence in schools. The pupil allegedly used his father's gun on Friday's shooting at a primary school in Grahamstown, east of the main city of Johannesburg. Of their story on page 223 and more African World News of the Standard newspaper. As we move on now to sports news, that is back pages of the Standard newspaper. It says from page 38 and 39. Let's see page 37. Nairobi County sees 6 to seize tourism chances ahead of rally. Nairobi gets ready to host the highly anticipated World Rally Championships, the Safari Rally. The country will get yet another chance to showcase its diverse offerings and solidify its position as a top destination for tourism and investment. The event will begin at the iconic Kenyatta International Convention Center (KICC), and there will also be action at the Kasarani Super Special Stage. Key for the county is highlighted Nairobi's cultural heritage and tourism, including some of the unique features it boasts, such as being the only city in the world with a national park. Nairobi County is working with the national government to ensure the safety and security of all participants and visitors. Moving on now to back pages, it says, will Liverpool, Man City or Arsenal come on top? It is set to be the tightest Premier League title races in many years. Manchester City's 1-0 victory over Brentford on Tuesday night lifted Pep Guardiola's champions above Arsenal into second place, 1 point behind leaders Liverpool, with 13 rounds of fixtures remaining. For the first time since 2015-16, when the third-placed Gunners were 2 points behind leaders Leicester after 26 games. The top three are separated by just 2 points. In fact, the gap at the top has only been as tight at this stage of a Premier League season on 7 other occasions and only 4 times this century. Erling Haaland's 22nd goal of this campaign means City hopes of becoming the first team to lift the trophy 4 times in a row are very much still in their own hands, with a crucial match against Liverpool coming up in March. at Anfield. Guardiola's team arguably have the most difficult run of fixtures in the coming weeks after travelling to Bournemouth on Saturday. City will welcome bitter rivals Man United at Etihad Stadium before the Highland disputed a trip to Anfield in their next league game. More of that story, you'll find it on page 39 and 40 of the Standard newspaper. Imegonga dakika 40 msikilizaji, baada ya saa moja. Sina budi la kutamatisha awamu ya leo ya kipindi cha leo magazetini. Kumbuka bado ni awamu ya kipindi cha Dau la Ikra msikilizaji. Baada ya muda usio mrefu utapata kupokea mada ambayo tutazungumzia, alafu kupata fursa ya kuweza kuchangia. Msikilizaji, zidi kujumuika nasi. Jina langu ni Shuaib Ali na kuacha na salamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Pembe Flour Mills Limited, the manufacturers of high-quality maize, home baking flour, and animal feeds. Pembe Flour Mills has 2 branches in Nairobi's industrial area, namely Pembe Flour and Feed Mills, Lunga Road, and Pembe Flour Mills, Suma Bay Road, industrial area, Nairobi. We also have a godown in Nakuru, near KFA. Other branches in East Africa include Pembe Flour Mills Limited, Kange industrial area, Korogwe Road, Tanga, Tanzania, Bajabir Millers Limited, plot number 1, 5th Street industrial area, Kampala, Uganda. Pembe Flour Mills Limited, Byumba Bishumbi, Northern Province, Rwanda. Pembe Flour Mills, the mark of trusted quality.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Aisha Prime and you're listening to 95.0 Iqra FM, the station with a difference. When you're listening today and every day, listen with your heart, not only your ear.